It is 10 o'clock. Good morning and welcome everybody to the Easthampton Mayor's COVID-19 virtual town hall. The way we're going to do it is that is this the video? Is that the mayor is going to talk, and if you have questions, you can submit them in the chat window for me to ask, or at the end there will be a time when you can unmute yourself and ask the questions directly.
Okay.
All right, you seem all set. So without further ado,
Yes.
Mayor LaChapelle.
Good morning. As Ryan said, I'm Mayor LaChapelle of Easthampton, Massachusetts. This is my weekly virtual town hall. Today we have our city planner, Jeff Bagg, to walk us through some key projects and developments going on in the city. We started some time ago. Their relevance is still very important to the our community and how we go forward, especially in light of the last few weeks in our city. So I'm going to get right to Jeff Bagg, and then afterwards we'll have question and answer about what Jeff presents or anything else is on the mind of Easthampton. Take it away, Jeff.
Thank you. This is fun. I'm really glad that you're doing this. It's a great way to get more information out to people. So we're always trying to do that. This has been a crazy several months for sure. And in terms of the planning department, we really haven't stopped. One of the things that we were really initially trying to do when everything kind of shut down was do the best we can to keep all of the projects on track. We're really trying really hard to not stop our progress. And I think that we actually did that. Myself and Jamie and Pascalina and Cassie, they've all been working this whole time. And I think it's been good because I think we're seeing a lot of challenges with people who live in Easthampton it's so challenging for people to not have work and income. So we're definitely cognizant of that, but I think we've been trying to keep our projects moving. And I do see that we will sort of come out of this on a similar trajectory that we were on before. Do you want me to just go through a couple of projects? So we have so much that we're doing right now, but we did make some really concerted efforts to try to address some of the issues that came up from COVID right away.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty proud of them. And with a lot of work of others and a lot of people that we have, the CPA committee, the Community Preservation Act committee, starting almost immediately started talking about what could they do with, so CPA has pretty limited funding, they have limited things they can do with the funding. And one of them is to support affordable housing. And so almost immediately there was a lot of discussion about creating the rental assistance program. And so, the committee members and we have another committee called the Fair and Affordable Housing Partnership. So they all started talking about how we can set up a program to get rental assistance to people in Easthampton. And so that's been ongoing for several months. And so last night, finance, and it comes to city council next week to start that process. And that's a tremendous, amount of work that we weren't previously doing, but we set it up. And so we kind of, the word I guess is pivoted. So we pivoted to try to do that. And the other thing that we are in the process of doing is using community development block grant funds. So that's funds from the state and federal government to set up a small business assistance program. So we're taking a role to partner with several other communities and PVPC to we're applying, and so this is all competitive. So we have been hustling to put together the application for that. It gets submitted tomorrow. What that will, if we're awarded, what that will allow is us, Easthampton, to give up to $10,000 to small businesses who need the assistance. So we've been working really hard to sort of realign our, block grant funds to do that for people, business owners in Easthampton. And then the last two, we have an arts coordinator, Pascalina, and through the Easthampton City Arts Committee, they had allocated some funds to create these small grants for artists. So we have a lot of artists. We have a great art community in Easthampton, and many of these artists had been lined up to be at Cultural Chaos, which was postponed to next year. We had Friday night art walks lined up, so artists would get paid to be doing certain things during that. All of that's been canceled. So we know that we're not going to solve anyone's financial problems, but we wanted to support artists so that they could be creative and get a little stipend and produce art that people, can enjoy. And so we're trying to support artists, give them, some opportunity to keep doing what they're doing and then share it. And so that's one of the important things about art is it's helpful for people to just get distracted and do something different. And so that's really important. And so we issued, I think it was 21 small grants to artists as a phase one. And then we had a donation from, we have a GoFundMe was created, and River Valley Co-op contributed a certain amount of funds that if we can match that, then we'll add another I think it's $10,000 to do a phase two. So we're going to try to implement this, in this unclear time. We have no idea what we're going to do all summer. So we're going to try to create some arts programming. And then the last thing, sort of COVID related, is that, the city council is going to get this week a proposed amendment to the zoning to try to make it easier for new businesses to locate in the downtown area. So right now, what I saw, what was really concerning to me was Puffer Printing closed on Union Street. And for a new business to get into that space, they have to apply to the planning board, which costs $100, and then they have to publish a legal ad, which can cost up to $300, and it takes like 2 months. So the proposal is to remove that planning board process for new businesses to go into, it has to be an existing building. Right. And, for Puffer Printing, that example, that's kind of a turnkey space. So they don't really need to make any changes to the building. So it's been a discussion for a couple of years to streamline some permitting. And I just really was kind of thinking, what can we do, other than give people money, which is what everyone probably actually needs, but we as a municipality can't really do that. So what could we do to make, some changes? Because the vacancies in the downtown is really concerning. It's really sad when a business closes, and that's traumatic. But if someone wants to go into one of those existing spaces, then I would be talking to someone about maybe being able to get in there in September. And that's really a long time for someone to try to get into an existing space. So those are a couple of things that we've been doing for COVID.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So with all the different, I guess I'll go back to one. So we were starting that housing needs and production plan. Yep. And that was underway. Where is that plan so important now in the face of COVID, but also what happens to public participation so needed in that plan? What are the new next steps? Yeah,
that project has slowed down a little bit. So the consulting group has what I've been told is that they're almost done with the needs assessment. So it's broken up into definitely some sections of data collection. Yeah, and they came to Easthampton. We gave them a tour. We showed them sort of all the different housing types and areas of our town. So they had a lay of the land, and then they are doing the data collection and analysis of the real estate trends, the past trends, and then making projections. So we expect to get some information coming in July, and the process is set up that it would go to the Affordable and Fair Housing Partnership as our committee, and also the EDIC, the Economic Development Commission. So those two groups are kind of the steering committee. Then the way that we're going to probably approach that is to try to get a survey for people to try to take to help understand what their concerns and needs are. Mm-hmm. And that has been so then the rest of it is the community outreach and community participation. So we will likely have a community meeting, although I have not fleshed that out yet with them, how they want to handle that. We've done a couple so far, 2 virtual meetings. And by and large, people have responded positively because it's something that they can do from home. You don't have to get dressed and go to town hall at 6 o'clock at night. It's been pretty interesting, but I will say it's a little cumbersome. So for something as important as housing, we want to try to find the most meaningful way to get information from people. Mm-hmm. I'm just not sure that the virtual meeting is going to be the best for that, but
yeah.
So that's a really important project, though. So a couple of things about that, though, is we have a housing production plan, which is a document that the state requires of municipalities to have, and ours expires in August. So part of this project is to update our housing production plan, which talks about what are our affordable housing needs, what are barriers to constructing affordable housing, and what are potential areas where new housing could be built. So that product should be completed and submitted to the state by August. And then we also asked for a little bit broader look at our housing needs in general. So we have affordable housing needs, and then we have a lot of anecdotal information about our market rate. And this COVID situation is really interesting because we don't know what its impact will be yet. So we embarked on this study way before there was any, obviously, pandemic happening. So I will be myself curious how they respond to the pandemic. It seems like it's a snapshot in time, but I think, as you've talked about a couple of times, like, we won't really know what this looks like for a little while longer until we get through the summer and see what happens. So it's definitely an unknown.
Around housing, so last night the city council approved a rental relief program as a result of COVID to help folks with rent, making rent payments. That kind of a tool with housing money in the CPA fund. I mean, I worry about, there's a long list of issues that we continue to keep tackling that go far beyond planning, that unfortunately are searing in all of our heads right now. And I certainly, after this segment of the program, want to open up that discussion. But I guess my fear, Jeff, is that we have struggled and just lose out opportunity to build affordable housing in Easthampton because of we don't have the capacity, the sheer land to put 45 units on or 50 units on. And so affordable housing developers or developers who incorporate affordable housing go to where there is land and space, like Northampton and Springfield, Chicopee, South Hadley. Is this concept of some kind of a rent relief program maybe have some tentacles or boots on the ground for a tool that we can use going forward past the current health situation to help people to not only stay in Easthampton but come here? I mean, we're starting to go off renters list because our rents are too high.
Yeah, I think I do think it has something that we would probably explore to continue in the future.
Yeah.
And, the description last night is that right now it's an emergency response kind of program, right. And that's the state is encouraging that. It's definitely a good use of CPA. The long term, there are some other, I think it's a little bit more of logistics to work out, but then you have to look at financially how sustainable is it moving forward. So I think my response is that you'd have to come up with a multiple prong approach. So one of them is this rental assistance idea, and it won't solve our problems by itself,
Yeah.
So the production of more housing units is something that we know we need to continue to explore. And this housing study, what it's going to do is it's going to help us understand what housing types do we need the most.
Yeah.
And so, I took this project really seriously. I've sat with the EDIC for 2 years, and they continuously talked about how housing, and the availability of housing actually relates to economic development. And so, through those discussions, there's this anecdote that we have an aging population, and our older residents might, not everyone, but they might be looking to get out of their single family house and into like their next phase of living, which is something like Mount Tom Estates on East Street, or something more condensed where they have some services.
Yep.
So we do believe that we are missing that housing type.
Yeah.
For people to move into in their next phase. And so this project really should determine and really confirm that that's a housing type we need. And then it's going to give us some tools for zoning that we need to allow that. That's really important. And then we are going to try to look at some areas of Easthampton that would be good for housing development. And so, we don't really have a housing plan at this point. So that's one of the key goals of this, is to come up with a multiple year plan. And I think in response to COVID, I do think that they will look at the CPA rental assistance idea. There's another amendment to create a senior exemption from CPA. Isn't that correct? So there's an idea that some seniors may not pay into CPA as a way to kind of lower the cost. So we're exploring that. It's you and I have talked about it a lot in the past couple of years. It's something that's really important for us to try to maintain affordability in Easthampton, and so we're still looking at that. It has not stopped.
Yeah, I mean, the multi-pronged approach, I think is just so important. But to hear this idea around the CPA and how it could seniors could apply for some relief for it is a little bit something. The emergency rent relief is a little bit of something, because if there's anything, I think about the time these projects take to get to fruition, till like we have those units for folks who are over 55 who want to downsize so they don't have to move out of town. That's years away, but we know strongly anecdotally that there are folks who need help in different areas as far as rent and as far as the expense of owning a property as your income is diminishing. And I think us broadening that perspective to do whatever little things we can do as we move forward based on the housing needs and production planning and the work of EDIC, CPA, and planning is important. And also, and thanks. I mean, you think about where these ideas really took off in this area. Councilor Kwasinski really taking a hard look at CPA and what small relief it could be given to some seniors. Greg Rowland on CPA to say, look, this works. Let's keep looking at this. The work of Jamie Webb. The ideas brought forward and the fact that you guys are looking at them very seriously, and when we can do it, we do it when it makes sense. I think is great. I just saw our city council president Peg jump in with something, and then the question went away, or the blur.
I know one of them says that it needs a ballot initiative, so I forgot about that. So it'd be something the residents of Easthampton chime in on to make that happen.
For the CPA one.
For the senior exemption, yeah.
For the senior exemption for CPA, we need a ballot initiative, but not for the emergency rental relief fund, correct?
Correct. Yeah. Yep.
Correct.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you for that. And then a smaller issue or question I've gotten is around Valley Bike.
Yes.
And our e-assist bikes. What's the status of them?
Coincidentally, I was on a long meeting yesterday. So we're part of the 5 communities who are trying to make sort of a cohesive move towards opening the bike share. So it was obvious that they needed to so originally they were going to roll out on April 1st, and it just wasn't going to happen. There was so much uncertainty about how to do even the most basic things.
Right.
There is a lot of support and discussion about the fact that Valley Bike, serves as an alternative mode of transportation. I know that in our community we have the bike path, and so there are definitely options for it to be leisure activity. That as we build this system and people can get more reliably around, it is a form of transportation that people would have access to. So we're talking about launching them at the end of June. So the bikes will come back into communities. They get moved around by the network. So the bikes get repositioned so they're equally spread out across the towns. And when they're placed back in Easthampton, they'll be sanitized when they're put onto the dock.
Yeah.
But then after that, someone will use it. They are going to be using it at their own risk. So it's a lot like public transportation that, we're not, you go on a bus, you take the responsibility when you're done to sanitize your hands. And so we think that it's responsible enough that if we're going to put up a couple signs to make sure people know that they're not being professionally sanitized by the city of Easthampton. So, but we are going to put them out, and we think that the system's going to function through the summer pretty well. This is something that they would have never really anticipated. But there are other towns thinking about joining. So West Springfield, Chicopee, those two towns are joining, and we are looking at adding an additional station. So the lead community for that project is Northampton, and they applied for federal funding, and collectively we were awarded money to increase the number of stations. So Easthampton put in for one new station, and the conversations that we've had are trying to put it somewhere on Parsons Street, because what we see as the future there is the upgraded intersection at Parsons Street and Ferry Street. That's a project that we have envisioned, and we want to make a plan to do that. And then they can come down Ferry Street, where we're going to have that upgraded pedestrian walkway, which would connect to the bike path. So we haven't done anything formally with that Parsons Street location yet, and it kind of definitely slowed down a little bit during the COVID stuff. But that we're looking to add another station probably next year to make that
so
more robust.
Around the safety and hygiene around the bike. So the state, and I'm working on the order now, the state issued new guidelines for outdoor recreation and cleaning. Very similar. I look at the bikes very similar to playground. So we will be washing down our playground, but the state guidance is to have people, the best way to use a playground or a shared bike, e-bike, will be by hand sanitizer and washing your own hands. And that came out in the last 4 or 5 days. So the sanitizing of the bikes as they're switched out is certainly helpful, but it's the strong guidance of the CDC and the Mass Department of Public Health is saying that use your hand sanitizer, your alcohol spray as you're using these, and then wash your hands afterwards is safe. And that's what's needed. And that also goes to playgrounds, and our health agent has put out some clarification, and I'll be following up with other clarification health orders around these shared resources in the community, because just so people know that, it's not lost on me that one of the most simple things that we were urged to do from day one is washing our hands, and hand sanitizer remains our best protection when we start moving about the community, if we feel safe to do that. Yes. So I wanted, I'm looking at my planning questions. Do you have any the arts visioning sessions that we did and the community planning sessions that we did for downtown? Have you given any thought about how we work outside? Are there any of those community sessions, listening sessions, or planning that can happen outside, given given new guidance on outdoor recreation? Is that possible? Is it something the planning department is thinking about?
When did that guidance came out the other day? It's such an evolving situation. I have not thought about that yet. Originally, and I do see it. Yeah. We have a lot of projects underway, and I'm sensitive to questions that I've gotten, like why are you doing this still? But a lot of the projects that we're doing now started months ago and even years ago. So it just seemed irresponsible for me to stop. So we've tried to adapt, and so the couple projects I'm thinking of in response to this, and I'll try to tie it together. But we have a project that is in its very early stages. This idea of trying to connect the plains to the new school. Yeah. And so we had a virtual meeting last weekend on Saturday, and we have a survey, and that's at its infancy. So it's a very early stage. Yeah. And then we have another project that is on East Street. So we acquired 23 acres with Kestrel, and it's just been a clear vision to try to create a parking area and an accessible path. And so we're going to do a final community meeting next Saturday to show the design plans, and that's ready for funding for construction. Yep. But the Mount Tom parcel, the one on East Street, we had originally set up a meeting on April 4th, and we were going to do a site visit, and then we were going to meet at Arcadia. And when that was right after all the COVID stuff started happening, and we did have the discussion about meeting outside, meeting at the site. But at that point, the guidance seemed like it was really triaged to the most important things, and now we're loosening it up. I could see us trying something maybe at the end of the summer. Right now, I don't. Okay. I think it's creative, but I think it has so many challenges that I would like to wait and see a little bit longer whether we could pull that off. I think I have been using a lot of Zoom, and I think people are okay with it. It's not the best thing, but it is extremely challenging to be ready and set up and make it meaningful for people. I like the idea of trying some stuff outside. I can't think of any projects that have this immediacy to that I would do. The arts visioning is done. So that's good that project was completed, and I think that the mini artist grants is a reflection of what came out of that. Yeah.
I think people are. I think the question comes, generally of what, like we're all is what do we expect next, or what can we hope to see. So I mean, it is definitely a stay tuned, but thinking out of the box.
Yeah, I've been trying. So I guess the thing outside the box. I've been trying. I made a bunch of videos, and I'm using Facebook. So as a platform that I'm always aware that not everyone uses Facebook, and some people don't like it, but it's a platform that works actually pretty well right now for us to share information. So short of getting people physically out to a site, I started to make some videos of a lot of the projects that we're doing, and it's funny because it's kind of a little bit like the icing on the cake. I think the Ferry Street videos, lots of people loved it, and we're very interested to learn like kind of what was happening and where we were at. But we've been working on that project for like 3 years straight, every single day. It's something happening for Ferry Street, and so now we're finally at that point where we could go out and make a video and talk about here's what's actually happening, and it's really rewarding. But it takes a lot of work to get to that point to make a video that people can kind of see what's going on. Yeah, but get it out. I'm kind of going off of your idea of this convening people. And we might be able to do something in late summer or early fall, especially for Ferry Street, where we could do a meeting to just walk people around and bring them up to speed as to what, we're going to be pretty far along by the end of the summer.
Yes.
It won't be done, but the mini roundabout will be sort of in place, roughed in, and the walkway along Lower Mill Pond will be in. And then we know that the developer of Ferry Street is looking to put people in that building, the first building, in July. And so so that could be one way to get people out. And I could see the same thing happening at River Valley Co-op.
Yeah, no, I want to be mindful. We're halfway through and people probably have questions. I will leave you with this thought idea, Jeff. So what I was thinking is if we could have that kind of like Ferry Street say, if there was a Zoom call or just a phone call that you called into, right? And you could have a guided tour or guided meeting as people are at a site maintaining, say, 12 feet of distance between each other, and the meeting is mobile. I mean, it wouldn't be a meeting that but just to get people to the sites or just for people to talk about anything, not in a cube, but anybody with a phone or not a phone could come and we could have that meeting happen outside or at a site with distance and masks. And folks, almost like when you go to a museum, a docent, right? The audio tour. So I want you to think about that, Jeff Bagg, city planner. I think that would be fascinating, not just for planning, but for a whole bunch of other things. So I'm going to actually pause and open it for questions. I know President Conniff is on the phone, and there was a lot of work done at city at finance meeting last night. Questions, comments on this, and of course, anything else that's on people's minds. You can raise your hand or put it in the chat. I see Louise.
Okay. Hi, Jeff. I'm trying to gather my thoughts here, but I'd like to talk about access, talk about disabilities. The first planning meeting, or the first public one I went to, was in, I'm fairly new, I'm losing it, I'm not good at public speaking, was in the school right by the library.
Yeah,
I couldn't get in, Jeff. The only way I got in is texting my daughter, and Tara, and she's a neighbor of yours, and I think it was you who actually provided the keys.
Yep.
If I hadn't had that inside track, I would never be there. It was difficult to see. A lot of people said it was impossible to hear if you're elderly and you're the sort, because there was, it's a huge group, a million things, starting with just getting into the place and no access. By contrast, speaking from people who are just giving you a snapshot, because it's not just me, but I don't see anybody else at these meetings. I think it's just that I've come from a participatory city background, so I'm beginning to think I have more expectations. I'm also talking to people like me, and most people in Easthampton have just given up, and that's not from me ages ago. But having said all that, and not very well, I was also at the East Street Zoom meeting that you referred to, and it was fantastic. And I'm hearing, it's the first time I participated. I put these questions in chat. They were heard. I don't know if they can all be, but at least some of you have some representation. So I'm hearing Jeff saying kind of that it's cumbersome. He'd like to get back, but I'm kind of making a request, a plea, whatever, is that you can continue to provide Zoom or electronic remote access.
Yeah.
Because what stops people from going isn't the fact that you have to get dressed and go out at 6 o'clock. It's a million other disability things. I could talk to my particular ones because I'm halfway in between. I'm a senior now.
I think that's a great idea, Louise. this hybrid of it's not all of a sudden, the reopening of the world and then this goes away. I mean, I think we, there's some lessons to be learned, and to be able to do a hybrid and a little bit of in person, but also to be able to do this. I mean, I don't know if President Conniff has something to say about this. I mean, right now it was very relatively easy to get this form, like Zoom as formal city communication up and going. I think that there's some legislative work we have to do to keep it going, but I love the idea of hybrid. I mean, the more people can access in the more ways, I think it's better for everyone, right? I mean, so I jumped on your toes there, Jeff. Did you want to comment on this?
No, that's good. I mean, yeah, I think my only observation is that it was, I think it's going to take a little practice, but I do agree, Luis, that a lot of people have, I think the ability to jump into a meeting from home is actually what a lot of people just expect. And I think I think the community meetings or these kind of visioning sessions or some projects, it works really well. For boards like the planning board or the zoning board of appeals, this is like a seed. This has been, every single state law about participation hinges on people can go to a place and they know the day and time of a meeting and they go and they can be heard. And so the shifting to electronic mode has been good but challenging. And I definitely am hearing a lot of chatter for public hearings. So if you have a project that's happening next to your property and you're in a butter, this idea of a hybrid public hearing, I think it has legs to stay part of our public process moving forward. But my only observation is that it's infrastructure, that's like time of people to set it up and then make it function, and then you have to be able to record it and get it back out. That's a lot of things that are on top of everything else. So I do want to give a lot of credit to City Council President Conniff, because I wouldn't call it easy to get all this stuff set up. There was a lot of mechanics and a lot of people. There's basic protocols that we really wanted to make sure we had in place as we did this. But I do like the idea of doing it more often. I think if you combined like the mayor's previous idea of a virtual site visit, so that people can actually see the place that's being talked about, I love that idea. And I'm really sensitive, Luis, because I was there. Yeah, I ran around up in school to find keys and the janitor, and we got you upstairs. And that was, I will admit that was a lesson learned for me. I really was trying to, those meetings were about what to do with Center Pepin, and we had a tremendous turnout for that event that was not really anticipated. And so in response to that, my lesson learned was we moved it to high school for the second one, which is just much more easy to get into. So I did, definitely take that really seriously, what happened there, but we did get you up there, but it was so hot. Yeah, it was tough.
Sorry, coming in quickly, because another disability I've got two, I'm afraid I've got a few questions, is I can't drive at night. So actually, I can only physically access in summer. And that's a very common, it appears, senior thing that I didn't get, and that I didn't really have because I've always lived where there was public transit before. Yeah. So my eyesight was going, and I started avoiding, and you just don't think about it. You move here, and it's a death knell. But just throwing that out and saying, and there's going to be lots of other reasons people would appreciate the Zoom hybrid. But there's one other thing. Sorry, and I'll say if Peg has set up off of this, I'm not surprised. I just met her a couple of months before COVID started. And she's not answering, but cheers to her. A second question that I'm sort of piggybacking on here is planning department is apparently in charge of or holds the communication strings for the Commission on Disability, or the committee, if I've got that right, because I've been corresponding a little bit with a tiny bit through Facebook with Angelique, the new chair. And Jeff, sorry it's me again, but I was the person who was texting with Angelique at the actual time of what was probably your February meeting. And I was asking her about an email. I was asking about electronic access. And I did not know that she was sharing my text with the committee in this room that I couldn't get to at Town Hall at the same time. And to sort of shortchange it, I know there are seniors and people who don't have, who aren't comfortable online, and this isn't going to cover everything, but like 60 to 66%, 65 now do, which is not the statistic that was being passed around and sort of quoted in Easthampton. And I know that like planning is really busy, but I'm asking, and I'm just piggybacking this, I've got the mayor and Jeff in the same room. If there's, and this has been, if there's some way to set that up, first email access. A lot of people who can't move around got pretty comfortable with emails, and I mean people who can't move around more than me. And I think that disability group has got to get some. I mean, I've learned a lot about access in the last few years. I'm not in a wheelchair. You've got a whole new set of things, and it just doesn't seem to be representative. People can't reach it, and this is just. And if the planning is too busy, can't there be an email? And I hear you're busy, but can't there be an email place to get in touch with that committee that isn't planning somewhere else? Okay, let's stop. I think I'm sorry.
No, we're working on that and making sure that we're not creating email accounts that can't be monitored and they get right to the committee and not go to an employee. And it's something so simple, and we've just kind of gone back and forth on it and talked to Ashley Barstow, our IT person, who's actually been really helpful with the Zoom stuff. And I know President Conniff too has we've all gone back and forth on it, and I agree. I hear the need. I do want to make sure if somebody else has a comment or a question.
I'm done.
No. Thank you, Luis. If anybody else, Ryan, I'll go back to you.
See, no more in the chats right now. If anybody would like to unmute and ask their question, otherwise.
I have a question of President Conniff.
Great.
Yes.
President Conniff, hello.
Hello.
So when what Louise brought up, and this has actually been a common question, so whatever the new normal is or whatnot happens, we were able to put together Zoom meetings to have our government, the core functions of our government, continue. But to keep this as an option along with in-person meetings, is there a legislative process, or is there something different or a process we need to follow to make this a more permanent avenue for the public to participate with their government? Or now that we've done it, we're okay?
Yeah, so there is a Massachusetts general law that we would have to accept, which would allow city councilors to be remote as we meet. I think that legislation would also allow for, we actually broadcast today, so there should be no change to us being able to broadcast and having people come into the Zoom meetings, as well as having city council be in person at city council. I'm absolutely looking at that. And I think that's something, to Louise's point, to provide more accessibility. I also just wanted to anecdotally, while you guys were talking, I wanted to mention that I got an interesting comment last night after the city council finance committee meeting last night, that how sad it was that only 28 people showed up. And then I started thinking about the last couple of weeks where we had 50 or more people show up. I can't remember a council committee meeting where there were more than 5 people who showed up. So I think even just today, we are showing a greater accessibility to these meetings. We're getting more input to the meetings. I'd like to hear more people speak, but at least they're coming and they're listening and they're there. And I think that has been tremendous because it is difficult to get in person to the meetings, Louise. I hear what you're saying, and having the ability to sit in your living room and dial in and speak or not speak as a topic comes up to your interest, I think is tremendous. We still can live stream on YouTube. We can still broadcast on cable 193, but having people right there, I think it was great. And to only have 28 people, I think is a win. So I think we'll keep going with that.
I have a quick sort of anecdote too about that. So when you're using Zoom, you have to log in and you pop up. You're not anonymous. So you could see 28 people. I will admit that I have watched a couple meetings via YouTube where you are anonymous. Like, so you're not, there may be more people watching by watching YouTube that are not showing up on the Zoom. So when you're doing the live broadcast with Easthampton Media, which Easthampton Media has been great. I can't say enough because they just basically dropped everything and made all this stuff happen with us. But the ability to watch on YouTube live, obviously you can't participate, but there could be other people who are watching on YouTube that we are not really tracking or aware of during a meeting.
Yeah.
And so, because
the difference between the two, Jeff, is that typically when we are having the meeting and the host of the meeting, which generally is me, I set it, and you can set it to a gallery view so you can see everybody. But when you're broadcasting on Easthampton Media, they set it to speaker view only. So what you see is who's ever speaking. So if nobody's speaking, they're not going to be seen. So that's just a function of the way we broadcast on YouTube and on 193. And Ryan, you can certainly correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's where you're seeing a little bit of the difference, that if you set it to gallery view, you can see everybody. If you set it to speaker view, if you're not speaking, you won't see them.
I'm confused. So if I set it to gallery view like I have it right now, if I'm on,
you can see 10 people.
So, but if I'm on YouTube watching it, isn't that like watching it on TV live? Like I can't ask,
right. You wouldn't be able to ask a question from YouTube.
Correct. You're right. You can't ask a question on YouTube.
And can we tell, so we have 10 people on here now. Can you tell from YouTube just like how many people are clicking in?
It will show you how many people are watching currently. A lot of the times the government meetings, one or more of the staff will be monitoring it to make sure that everything goes right. And so it will say in the corner, 3 or 5 or 7 people are watching live right now.
Yeah.
But they're not. Okay, that's the difference between Zoom and YouTube. Okay, I understand now. Okay.
This is a little quick sidebar, but in terms of the Zoom, one thing that for the planning board, so we take it really seriously because we're dealing with people's property, and then we're dealing with the ability for a resident, a concerned neighbor, to participate. So while we're in this kind of unclear time, what we had discussions with the planning board, and what we're going to do this for a little while, is that we're going to conduct the hearing via Zoom, and then with the cooperation and help of Easthampton Media, there is then a recording that is available. And so the planning board chair in particular talked about, so we met last night for a public hearing, and they're going to continue it for 2 more weeks. And that video is available for someone who doesn't do Zoom or can't participate. We wanted to make sure that someone had that extra way to watch what happened and then submit comments for the next hearing. That was the biggest concern I had, was if someone says, I was really interested in attending this meeting, but I couldn't get access, or I don't have computer access. We wanted to at least have that fail safe where there's a recording. We can direct people to it. They can access the recording at some point, and then they can come back to the next meeting before the planning board makes the decision. So unless there's a really small project that doesn't have a lot of concerns or questions, we'll probably won't have the planning board be voting on any project in one Zoom meeting, because it's not enough public process.
Great, thank you. Any other comments or questions? I have a few points of information and clarification. to wrap our session up? We all clear? So one, you might be familiar with Town Reminder. It's a series of small newspapers throughout Western Massachusetts. I think they do some stuff up in Vermont and upstate New York as well. And they're starting Easthampton Reminder July 1st. They'll be reaching out and doing some advertising. It'll be a newspaper that comes out twice a week, and it will focus on Easthampton, Southampton, and Westhampton. It will be delivered to everyone in town for the first couple of weeks in a biodegradable blue bag that is compostable. And if you do not, and so everybody gets it the first couple of times it's published. If you don't want it, you just call or email them, say, take me off the list. You don't get it. But it will be focused on our three communities. I think that kind of what Louise brought up, I think any mode of communication, every mode of communication we can use to get the word out, to get legal notices out, is really important. And I know that the Gazette is covering a wider and wider breadth of our area. So it's hard to get Easthampton news out. So I want to make sure that people know that is happening. Also, there's been a lot of conversation around phases and reopenings. There are two departments right now that are still operating under quite a lot of stress, other than the planning department, Jeff. And one is our building inspection services. We're just getting back on top of the log jam. I will give some props to our building commissioner, Joe Mejwar, who has been issuing permits and then going back to get the attestation that those small permits, those contractors and homeowners doing those improvements will follow the COVID-19 guidance. That as we catch up, and we're almost there, the permits will not be issued without that piece of paper. If you've experienced a delay, that is probably one of the biggest reasons. Next to Joe catching up, we're looking to expand those services as we go forward, just because of the overall uptick in activity in Easthampton and people investing in it. But I would ask for some patience. I know, I think our building commissioner said that everyone in Easthampton is building a pool, a shed, or a fence. So we're trying to keep up as much as possible. He and Gabby are holding down that fort. The other department is health. So we are with more in some industries, the state has become very specific about COVID-19 guidelines, and we are migrating to those guidelines where it makes sense. There are some areas that are unclear, and others that do not make sense for Easthampton. So Bree is our health agent, Maggie Hebert as our chair of the local board of health. Also have to thank Kim, our public health nurse, and the coalition that we're working with around Western Mass is working very hard to issue guidance for what is safe for the public and also what works for the individual communities. So Bree is putting out new orders and migrating to the state standards, and all of the state information is on the website. She's trying to answer emails and calls as fast as she can, but the answer a lot of time is on mass.gov/COVID-19 or mass.gov/reopening. And there are also direct emails into the state for like very specific, unique businesses that might fall in between. We do want to talk to you. We want to talk to you about how to get your business open safely, how to become more safe. And we're going as fast as we can. We are bringing on more staff into that department to deal directly with COVID-19 related issues like we're talking about. One of the hot button issues is phase 3, phase 2 restaurants, outdoor dining, phase 3, phase 4 around beer gardens, breweries, and distilleries, and figuring out what guidance we can give to get folks open depending on the very individual circumstance of restaurants, of beer gardens, of breweries and distilleries. It has been super confusing. I have gotten a lot of calls. I want to be really clear that when it comes to alcohol And liquor licenses and even food, I am recusing myself. I have a conflict. So it's not that I'm not answering the question, but I would refer you to Lindsay Mailer, our licensing board clerk, or Kelly Ritchie, the chair of that board, as well as Bree. But we've gotten a ton of questions, and I just want to make really clear we're getting to them as fast as we can. If you don't know who to email, anybody, or call, or can't get a hold of somebody, and all else fails, call my office at 413-529-1470, or email mayor@easthamptonma.gov, and Zoe will get you to the right people. And with that, I would also ask for just some compassion and patience. We're moving as fast as we can. The last piece of information, I think we've started to see it in the newspaper. It's also Superintendent Leclerc has started to share information about what school may look like in the fall. And that is developing, and also some grave concerns we have for our daycare providers and the families accessing that, and safety, but also how do we support those businesses, those key crucial, more than businesses, right? They're like a business with a heart. They take care of our kids. How do we help them with the tremendous regulation and also just the drastic shift in their care model? So those are kind of hot topics right now. And let's see. And then in the last, I've talked to several people via email and on the phone and in meetings around looking at the use of force by police and our city. A couple from the protests and before, I will say very candidly, there's not one thing I have said or done that everybody agrees with, and I find that to be very healthy and reassuring. We have very difficult conversations and actions to make, and this is the very beginning. And I would maybe end on a note that President Conniff put out there. I would love to have 10 people still on this call in 6 months. And I would love to have more than 28 people at public speak at every single city council meeting now until the end of time. And I hope that the folks who have so much passion, and I know they do, and I know they're extremely committed to justice and equal justice and equity, I hope they stay with us in the government to work through with all of us to a fairer place. We haven't done so great historically as a country, and we have a chance to do that now. Please continue to tune in. Please continue to attend, send me emails, call, say however you want, however you want to say it. Please, let's share it in a productive way so it can be collected and we can move forward with a very public conversation that ends up in policy that we all can see reflected some part of our beliefs and values. Everyone, please stay safe. Great to see the rain. If you can, stay home. If you go out, cover your nose, cover your mouth, wash your hands, and stay away from people that, for most people, you can make your own judgment there. But take care, everyone, and have a good week.
Thank you very much, Mayor LaChapelle. Thank you, Jeff Bagg. I just want to remind everybody that this broadcast, as well as all of the previous virtual town halls, are available on Easthampton Media's YouTube channel, and we will be hopefully doing this every week. The key and login is available in the Facebook event, and it is also available on the city's website. Thank you, everybody who participated, everybody who is watching, and have a good day.